NBA draft is a little under 3 hours away. Beginning of the 2025 calendar starts in the NBA tonight, and the Portland Trailblazers are currently on the clock with pick number 11.
Whoop, whoop.
And we've gone through the lottery mock for ESPN, and in that mock, Kasparas Jacksonis, the point guard from Illinois, is the pick that ESPN has for the Portland Trailblazers. I've heard Yegor Demin mentioned to Portland a few times. Jake Fisher and Mark Stein put out their first intel report of the day, and they had intel of Yegor being a potential Portland pick. And again, Yegor was a guy that worked out in Portland. Earlier today, I put out the entire list as I know it to be confirmed of all workout participants that came through Portland. Obviously, I broke the news that Yegor worked out in Portland. But this group, basically everybody that has been linked to Portland has worked out here. So there you go. But all that said,
Ace Bailey hasn't worked out.
Ace Bailey has not worked out anywhere. But with
how
that,
about Paul George calling? Do you see that Paul George he commented on that, like
No.
making demands? Yeah, I actually saw that earlier this morning. He's like basically called out Ace Bailey for making demands. It's like, dude, you haven't done anything yet.
yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of players. In the
Says
league
the
that feel
guy
like
who
that.
calls himself Playoff P.
Yeah, well,
You never know.
there you go.
Yeah, he said, you're not in a position to be making all these demands. Make it to the league first. His way of going about it is just not right.
Yeah, I think that's not only a general feeling among players, but front offices as well, which is why the perception is what it is around Ace Bailey. But as it pertains to the Portland Trailblazers,
He also did say he has a lot of talent.
yeah.
So it wasn't just him
No.
crapping on Ace Bailey.
No, it was the handling of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is more directed at his agent than anything else.
I think everybody has said that at some point.
Mhm.
In the league, out of the league, players, non-players, like,
Get
what
there.
are we doing, dude?
Yeah. But the Portland Trailblazers have a point guard mocked to them.
All
and
right.
we discussed earlier in the show, the Portland Trailblazers trading Anthony Simons for Jrue Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So in your backcourt, as of right now, you have Jrue Holiday, Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, Matisse Thybulle. If you add Kasparas Jacksonis or Yegor Demin into that, you are investing draft capital into another guard, which I'm not entirely against if that's the best player on the board. Again, I love Jacksonis. I think he's going to be a very good player in the NBA.
And he fits that mold of, again, as we said earlier, he fits that mold of what Portland likes in a player. Long,
Big, strong, feel, IQ.
can play downhill.
And I think they're leaning more and more into the feel and IQ stuff. Like I genuinely do. And I think Kasparas and both Yegor fall into that vein. And they do need playmaking and shooting. And while Kasparas' shooting tail off at the end of the year, early in the season, he shot the hell out of the ball before he had an injury to his wrist and his forearm that did ultimately impact him, as well as some confidence stuff. But if they take another guard, another primary ball handler, does that start the clock on Scoot Henderson? Because boy, does that feel like it if you're cycling through a veteran guard, because not necessarily you don't trust wholly Scoot Henderson, but there's certainly the evidence is you don't fully trust
Well,
Scoot
no,
Henderson.
I think we've all seen it.
Yeah.
Like, Scoot has stretches. He has moments where you're like, oh, okay, there's the young buck right there. What? Gosh, it was probably in February when he had that step back 3-pointer take a lead late in the game, and it was like, oh, hey, look at old Scoot. Look at him go.
Was that the Brooklyn game? He ended up going off. They ended up losing the game, went for 38.
I don't remember who it was against, but
It was in that period.
and it was kind of the jump start to one of those stretches where he said, okay, maybe this is the guy that they drafted and they thought they were going to get. Boy, it craters.
And I will say the
craters
Blazers
at
do
times.
believe in Scoot Henderson's shooting ability. Like that is something they believe he will be able to shoot the ball. And of all my quote unquote criticisms of Scoot, you've never heard me really say anything about his shooting, because I do think he'll be able to shoot it at minimum league average and probably above league average.
But this is the thing. I do appreciate that this team is going to be going down the road of, until you prove it, we are going to test you.
Yeah.
And we are going to bring in guys that are going to force you to compete.
Mhm.
And if you don't want to be that guy, then whatever. So be it. So if they go with Demin or Jacksonis, I'm okay with that, because it's not, hey, we've got this guy, we don't want to hurt his feelings, which is what we saw before.
It's competition.
It
Figured
is-
out.
we're going to bring in enough guys until you can prove to us that we need to stop bringing these guys in. And if Scoot does take a step forward, at that point you go, all right, now we got a luxury. Now we have a luxury, and that is where that was like always the misnomer is that this team was addicted to guards that were 6'4" and under, right? For so long. Well, this would be a drastic change. Scoot is not the biggest point guard in the world.
No, but he's strong as hell.
But you know what? Demon and Yakachonis,
those
they
are big guards.
Big guards.
Like 6'6" and 6'9", and Jrue's 6'4", 6'5", and strong as a bull.
So what you're doing is you're bringing in a variety of guys saying, we know what we think you can be, Scoot. And by the way,
show it.
Jrue Holiday is a awesome person to just point to and be like, if you want to maximize who you can be in the NBA, look at that dude.
That's the guy
who plays defense. He takes pride in defense. He is physical. He's a facilitator, and he can knock down open shots.
I had one NBA head coach tell me that he thinks Scoot Henderson got unfairly labeled coming out. He's still going to be a good player, but he believes that he's more Eric Bledsoe. And people might take that as a backhanded compliment.
Dude, before the injuries started piling up,
go look at what Bledsoe was doing. And Bledsoe was a dogged defender. Like, he very strong, very physical, but he was a guy that was putting up 20 points and, 6 assists while being a good, like, if Scoot Henderson turns into a guy who's like 18-7, 18.7 rebounds, and he's a dogged defender, that's very much Eric Bledsoe / Jrue Holiday. You know how many 20-point-a-game seasons Jrue Holiday has in his career?
None.
One. And he finished third in scoring on his team behind Anthony Davis and Julius Randle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the Jrue Holiday at his peak is like a 18-7 guy, which if you're 18-7 and being a plus defender, you're really good.
Yeah, but he also had Anthony Davis and Julius Randle, and those guys don't exist in Portland.
No, but also remember that series against Portland. As much as Anthony Davis got credit, and Dame has told me this numerous times, the first couple of years of Dame's career, Chris Paul was the boogeyman. After that, it was Jrue Holiday.
Yeah.
Jrue was that dude.
God, who was the small forward on that team, too, where it was Jrue and him jumping him at half
Jrue
court.
and Rondo were the guys who were doing it the most, but you had Etuan Moore.
Etuan Moore.
Yeah.
Just like I remember Etuan Moore, we're like, what the?
Yeah. You had Anthony Davis roaming the back line saying, we don't care about anything else you do underneath. You had Jrue at the point of attack and Rondo pinching in, Etuan Moore pinching in. Like the number of clips from that series where Dame had 4 eyes on him every time he had the ball was insane. It was I've never seen playoff coverage like that for a player that I've like the single player ever. And that was the series that Alfred Camino shot the living hell out of the ball from 3, and the Pelicans didn't care.
No, they said
shut down the engine and we're fine.